Thanks for joining us inside the War Room. I'm Jennifer Granholm. Normally, I would start the War Room with something political, like a recap of the Illinois primary or what that means to the presidential race, and we will get to all of that tonight, but there's another story that I want to talk about first. And I bring this up because I am a former federal prosecutor and I was a former attorney general, and I want to talk about this story because it really disturbs me as a prosecutor. And it certainly deeply disturbs me as a mother of a teenage son. Let me just first say a word about the prosecutor part. Now, you've heard about this story. Cenk Uygur and Keith Olbermann have covered this and done so very well. Trayvon Martin was the 17-year-old Florida high school football player who was shot and killed last month, and he was visiting with his father, a friend who was in a gated community. And he was walking back to that community, to the home in that community, from a convenience store in the rain in the early evening 3 weeks ago, carrying Skittles and a can of iced tea. Trayvon's killer, George Zimmerman, was the volunteer watchman for the gated community. And that night, as Zimmerman followed Trayvon, he called 911 because he thought the teenager in the hoodie was suspicious. Zimmerman is 28 years old. He's an ex-criminal justice major, and he had called the Sanford Police Department 46 times since he took on the role as guardian for the community. The scene played out from there, and now an innocent teenager is dead. Now, Zimmerman claims that in shooting Trayvon, he acted in self-defense, and this was based upon a 2005 Florida law called Stand Your Ground. And here's what the law says. It says, a person who is not engaged in an unlawful activity, this now refers to George Zimmerman, a person who is not engaged in an unlawful activity and who is attacked in any other place where he or she has a right to be, has no duty to retreat, and has the right to stand his or her ground and meet force with force, including deadly force, if he or she reasonably believes it is necessary to do so to prevent death or great bodily harm to himself or herself or another, or to prevent the commission of a forcible felony. Now, this law is part of the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC, cluster of pro-NRA bills that shot through legislatures in the past few years. Florida's was the first, and now 17 states have a version of this law, many with virtually identical language. The way the bill is written, in order for the defense to work, the prosecutor has to charge Zimmerman, and Zimmerman raises this self-defense claim, and the prosecutor has to rebut Zimmerman's claim that he acted in self-defense. So basically, the prosecutor has to prove that it was unreasonable for Zimmerman to believe that Trayvon Martin was about to kill him or greatly injure him. Now, officer reports reveal that Zimmerman claimed that he was jumped from behind by Trayvon and that he acted in self-defense. So, here are the 5 main pieces of evidence that address the likelihood of that defense being successful. First, the call from Zimmerman to law enforcement, and the officers telling Zimmerman not to pursue. Listen to this. Zimmerman whispers what many have described as a racial slur under his breath.
This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining and he's just walking around looking about. They always get away. He's running.
He's running? Which way is he running?
Down towards the other entrance of the neighborhood.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay, so you hear him running. You hear the 911 officer saying, we don't need you to do that. 2, there is a 911 call where you can hear a voice yelling for help and a firearm shot. Listen to this.
So you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
All right, what is your phone number?
Just, there's gunshots.
You just heard gunshots?
Yes.
The 3rd piece of evidence is Trayvon's mother, who identified his voice on that 911 call today on Al Sharpton's Politics Nation program on MSNBC.
When I heard the 911 tapes, I was absolutely sure that it was my baby crying for help. It hurt my heart. My heart was aching because I knew I wasn't able to help him.
The fourth piece of evidence is the account of the girlfriend who says that Trayvon told her by cell phone that he was being followed.
Trayvon said, what you following me for? And the man come and say, what you doing around here? Somebody push Trayvon because the head said this down.
And the fifth piece of evidence is that Trayvon was not armed, and he weighed between 75 to 100 pounds less than George Zimmerman. So the evidence that we know of, the public evidence, establishes that Zimmerman was the pursuer and not the victim. And so without having heard directly from Zimmerman himself, without knowing any other evidence, it seems to me that there is probable cause to believe that Zimmerman's stand-your-ground defense will not fly, just based upon what we can see from the public record. Zimmerman should be arrested. There's something that's even more troubling about this case, though, to me as a parent. I keep looking at the pictures of the baby-faced, handsome young man, and his voice on that 911 tape crying for help is agonizing for any parent to hear. I have a wonderful teenage son, too, and he wears hoodies, and he carries his cell phone, and he likes Skittles. And if this were my son, my God. But let's face it, this is not something that would happen to my son or to many other sons. This happened because Trayvon was black. My heart breaks for Trayvon's parents. Imagine that it were your son on that 911 tape begging for someone to help. Would you be satisfied with George Zimmerman being a free man? The Sanford Police Department needs to take action. And in fact, in the last hour, the Sanford City Commission voted 3-2 that it had no confidence in Police Chief Bill Lee Jr. They can't fire him. So now Lee needs to take the next step and resign. And if he doesn't, and if the city and the state does not take further action, a much larger power, the U.S. Department of Justice, hopefully will. NAACP President Turner Clayton said today that the DOJ had already taken a first step, with Eric Holder summoning Sanford's mayor and city manager to Washington. One thing is for sure, this is not the end of this story.